Hello everyone, P. McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap. This time taking a look at my Week 8 match in the Critical Force League against the server admin himself, Stiglord. As previously discussed, this team I inherited at 0-3 has been on a solid win streak. I was able to get a win with the original team, and then since being able to make adjustments, the team is now at 2-0. And so now I enter this match at 3-4, looking to get myself back to 500 and make a late season push for a playoff spot. So I'm looking to take Stiglord down, who himself is having a very solid season so far, and then put myself in the driver's seat to claim a middling playoff seed as we make the end of season push, as it's an 11-week season. So, before we dive into the match, we're going to take a look at the options he had available to him, and then the ways I prepped my team to best address those. So, all right, let me make a brief adjustment. Always seems to get uncentered. All right, so as part of the Carolina Whirlipedes, Stiglord had some very scary offensive pressure to play with. He, of course, has the Tapu Lele, which can just tear you apart with a Scarf or a Spec set. Really tough to address week to week. He's got the scary OU defensive core of the Toxapex and the Ferrothorn, not regarded for their wall breaking abilities, but for their just inability to be broken. And on top of that, he's got incredible wish support with the Licky Licky, so his Ferrothorn has the ability to just stay upright and lively for an entire match if you don't find a way to break that defensive trio. Cinderace is just a really great pivot, anti-hazard type of Mon. I've always been particularly fond of Cinderace, just great speed tier, great move pool. Court change is just an incredible way to discourage hazards so you don't have to address them week to week all that much. Very difficult Mon to deal with, and that 117 speed tier is going to be irksome for me to try to counter prep for. The Mega Metacham, which just does insane amounts of damage. High Jump Kick will easily two-hit KO the most defensive of Pyukumuku, so it's always going to be a problem dealing with that Metacham. Mimikyu, just a very good, solid breaker. The disguise ability gives it a chance to attack twice, so it can really knock a couple of things down, although it doesn't have a great way of dealing with Pyukumuku. Obviously, it has access to Woodhammer, so Woodhammer Life Orb combination is actually pretty effective, but, Mimikyu is taking itself out in the process. And then finally, Honchkrow and Subtile to round out the team. Not too particularly worried about either of them. Honchkrow doesn't really have a great way to deal with Mimikyu. Sceptile is just kind of weak and entirely ineffective against a Celesteela, so these aren't things I'm particularly worried about him running with. So we'll take a look at my team and what I was trying to use. Oh, I've had an issue with a disconnect. Apologies. It is loading its way back up, and here we are. So I am bringing once again the Megalopony. I am once again opting to go with um, an Adamant set. I don't believe I am creeping the Cinderace. I believe max speed, so I was 196. I believe I could have outcrept it if I had gone Adamant, or I'm sorry, Jolly, but I'm once again just sticking with my instincts and that I'm going to assume he is going to go Jolly, but only speed creep the Gengar because he has no reason to go full investment on his speed. So I'm speed creeping his speed creep essentially on the assumption that a Cinderace is not going to use all of its speed stat and instead invest some of it elsewhere. He is required to run Jolly Nature in order to outspeed Gengar outright. I mean, obviously, something like Sucker Punch can get around Gengar's speed stat, so he could theoretically keep it at an Adamant Nature and just try to deal with Gengar via Sucker Punch. But that's something he has to contend with as well. So I'm opting for that speed tier just on the assumption I can expect him to build in a certain way. The Celesteela, after last week's flop with the offensive set, I have gone back to the good and reliable special defensive wall, which is very essential here as a way to ensure Lele doesn't just stampede through me. A Specs Lele can be very dangerous. Obviously, Thunderbolt is still an option for it to run and do damage with, but Heavy Slam is just such a reliable way to one-hit KO it that Lele doesn't want to be 1v1ing Celesteela at any point in time, and is entirely trying to make accurate predicts on when Celesteela is going to switch in. Flamethrower, Leech Seed, Protect, so just a really good wall install. Flamethrower just ensures that Ferrothorn can't just sit in there and do it at once. Leech Seed eventually forces Toxapex out. Protect can allow for some Leech Seed stalling, if I would like it. A little bit of mixed in terms of the defense, some thrown in defense, so I'm not fully uninvested there, but otherwise really, really heavy in the SPDF. Pyukumuku, very physical this week, trying its very best to minimize the amount of damage that Metacham can do to me. Obviously, it can break through Pyukumuku if given the opportunity, so its ability to wall that out is going to be limited. Leftovers, unaware, usual stuff. Counter and Mirror Coat. I had pondered putting Protect on it as a way to try to bait out a high jump kick from the Mega Metacham because it does not have access to close combat. Again, ultimately opted against it just because I felt that Mirror Coat could have value in one hit KOing a Tapu Lele late game if I needed it to. Gliscor, going for a very defensive oriented one this week, at least in the EV spread. Max HP, decent investment into defense so that it's got as much bulk as possible to play around against Mega Metacham, and then very heavily SPDF invested so that it's able to absorb some hits from things like Tapu Lele. Roost to keep lively, Earthquake for damage, Swords Dance, and then Defog. Because when we look at his team, he really isn't able to take Earthquake all that well. On the expectation that Honchkrow doesn't come, his only resist in immunity to Earthquake is Flygon, and I have other ways of dealing with Flygon. So if Flygon's out of play, then I click Earthquake freely. So I opt not to go for a coverage move in the end, just on the expectation I can make Earthquake work. Gengar, opting for the Fight EMZ because, as we mentioned already, he has an incredibly scary defensive core in the Ferrothorn and the Licky Licky. Focus Blast, or I guess Fight EMZ here, to try to obliterate that uh, Licky Licky is going to be really, really essential here, and so I'm trying to make the most of that. Shadow Ball, because that hits pretty much everything else for neutral damage, I think with the exception of Honchkrow, who I'm not overly worried about. And then Destiny Bond on a way to maybe take something like Mega Metacham or Mimikyu to the grave with me, just as a good, or a Ferrothorn on the expectation I'm not going to hit my Focus Blast, and instead I'd rather just ensure it dies and I eat the knockoff and go down. So using him as a suicide option if I don't need the Fight EMZ anymore, if I've already used it. And then finally, Florges. I am doing something very different this week on the expectation Wish support sets are going to be called very hard. I am opting to go with a sub Calm Mind set because I'm looking at his team and I'm looking at Ferrothorn and Toxapex here primarily as his defensive pieces as well as Licky Licky. None of them have a very strong way of addressing Florges behind a sub. you know, Ferrothorn may carry a steel move, but my team overall doesn't incentivize steel as a good attack option. He gets more mileage out of knockoff. He gets more mileage out of leech seed. He gets more mileage out of rocks or spikes. So running something like Gyro Ball or something like Iron Head has a lot of limitations because he has just better moves available to him for my team as a whole. And killing Florges isn't really a primary concern if you're not expecting it to be a aggressive attacking option. So I'm trying to make a call on how he's going to counter prep, and I see an opportunity for Florges to break some of his defensive core because they can't reliably break Florges' sub. So pretty much max HP, a little bit sprinkled into defense, and then the rest just thrown into special attack because it's a really good special attack stat. It's a 112, and I don't require any speed investment. If we look at his team again, I naturally outspeed Pex, Ferrothorn, Licky Licky, and I'm Honchkrow as well, although it probably would be speed if it showed up. And then I can't really catch anything else above that. His speed tiers are a little large in their gaps, and so I'm hoping to take advantage of that. It goes basically from Licky Licky or Honchkrow all the way up to Mimikyu at 97. And so I just have no incentive to invest in that speed at all, and I'm looking to take advantage of that with the uh, subset here. So that's the team I assembled. That's generally what I was aiming to do. I have some pretty traditional defensive pieces, but if you look at my team, you can see it's almost too defensive looking on paper. So Florges is actually a surprise offensive option because I feel I can bait out some things that might otherwise be comfortable 1v1ing it, and then they find out they're not in a position to do that anymore. So we'll start the match off on slow or normal, I'm sorry. I lead Ferlogis, expecting he might lead Ferrothorn or might lead Licky Licky or some kind of defensive piece. I figure I can take any one attack from Mega Metachan if it leads as well, and if it fakes out, it fakes out. But if it tries to attack me, Florges is in a position to pretty much one-hit KO this Metacham. So I'm just going to sit in on this. It fakes out. I no longer feel in a great position to avoid something like Psycho Cut, so I'm going to run straight away to, I think it's Pyukumuku as a way to absorb that. And then I'm not wanting to get toxic or anything by the Licky Licky because I don't have aromatherapy this week because I'm using offensive Florges. So I'm letting the Licky Licky do what it wants right now. This Flygon's going to come in. I'm not scared of what a Flygon is going to do to Celesteela. It can't set up because of Pyukumuku, so I know it's going to be forced out right away. Another Leech Seed set. I am being very cautious here. I want to get Florges in because Florges has a really good window to be very potent here because he only has one resist, and that's Ferrothorn. And Ferrothorn, if it doesn't have a steel move, doesn't have a way to deal with Florges anyway. So Florges has a huge opening in this game to just be oppressive, but I don't want to mitigate that by getting my leftovers knocked off by the Licky Licky. So I'm trying to time my entry just right to ensure I get in safely and I don't risk losing those. I see it's doing a wish stall right now. It's doing the exact licky licky set I expected it to be. I've confirmed it's Ice Beam, which again, everything likes to carry coverage for Gliscor, so it's good to scout out the Ice Beams in the early game to know where they're at or the Ice moves in general, and so I know where one of them is. Ferrothorn comes in on Florges. He's expecting me to run off. I'm obviously not going to do that as a Florges. It looks like it's a block set, so this is actually really interesting. He brought a Ferrothorn set that would have actually beat Florges really easily if he had blocked me and he could have just leech seeded me and slowly stalled me out with this set because I wouldn't have been able to break a Ferrothorn if I wasn't a sub setup set. It would have just broken me. So because I'm able to sub here, I entirely eliminate the validity of that block set. And then Florges is in just such a great position because he doesn't have a steel move. He's using knockoff because that's his best attacking option or his only attacking option. And so now Florges is just in a really great position to set up on this Ferrothorn. I sub again. It tries to go for a call on the leech seed, expecting me to attack. I'm not going to take any risks. I'm going to sit behind the sub because I know he needs 2 hits to break it. And so I'm going to just get 2 free attacks on this Ferrothorn while it's trying to break my substitute. And then now Ferrothorn's at the point where it can be hit and killed by the next Moonblast. I'm going to sub again because there's nothing the Ferrothorn can do about that. He's going to knock off, not going to break my sub. He's basically forced out or forced to die. He goes into Mimikyu. An interesting decision because what's going to happen here is Mimikyu is just going to be instantly killed by this Moonblast. It will go first. It will break the sub. It will hit me out from behind that so that he's able to bring in something like Mega Metacham and force me out, which I believe is what's going to come in here. Yeah, it's the Mega Metacham. So I'm forced out into Gliscor. It Psycho Cuts here. My assumption is that it has Ice Punch, so I'm going to flee to Pyukumuku. My assumption is right. It tries to Ice Punch me, and so I know it has that as a move. I expect Ferrothorn is going to come back in here, and I'm going to call that, go straight in with Gengar. Thing is, it's at 42%. I don't want to waste my Fight EMZ at this point because I really kind of want that for Licky Licky still, and I don't want to take the risk I miss. So I'm actually just going to flee to Celesteela because I don't like that situation as much as I thought I would. I'm in on Celesteela. I expected him to switch out on the assumption I had Flamethrower. He didn't. Fortunate the Leech Seed missed. He protects this time to scout out. Smart on him. I Flamethrower. And then I'm going to make the call that he assumes he would. I'm going to make the call that he's going to make the assumption that I'm not going to click Flamethrower again because I would think he would switch his Ferrothorn out at that point because it seems obvious Ferrothorn would die to Flamethrower. So I'm going to double down on it because I don't see much loss in attempting it. And he plays a much riskier game and assumes I'm going to do something different because I've revealed Flamethrower. But he stays in. He gets eviscerated by Celesteela. I get the Spadef boost, which will be really relevant here. Nothing Licky Licky can do about this Celesteela, so I'm just going to keep leech seeding here because I'm not threatened by Licky Licky. It's doing Ice Beam for literally no damage at all. I'm just unthreatened by it. So Flygon comes in here. I'm at a heavy slam. So it's at 23%. The smart call would just to be clicking heavy slam again and removing this Flygon because it has no answer to heavy slam. I'm going to do something kind of silly because it doesn't work. If this had worked, it would have been fine. Because here's the thing, I've only revealed 3 moves so far. My last move is protect, but he doesn't know that yet. So I'm going to do something kind of silly here because it doesn't pan out. If it had panned out, it would have looked actually kind of okay. I'm going to try to leech seed here, and then the goal being protect behind the leech seed to get all my health back, basically. But then I'm going to miss leech seed twice in a row, which makes me look like an idiot because I'm going to be down to 18% when I was at full because I missed 2 straight leech seeds. I'm going to protect here, and so ultimately it worked exactly as I desired. I'm just like 40% lower on health than I should be. The benefit of this, though, is because this is such a SPDEF heavy Celesteela, it really is in a strong position now with that +1 boost to wall out this Tapu Lele. And because my health is so low, the Tapu Lele feels like it's going to accomplish that KO with this Thunderbolt. And so it almost plays to my benefit that my health was so low because I was able to bait out a Tapu Lele to come and attack me with Thunderbolt, which did not KO me. And so now I've been able to remove the Tapu Lele. Celesteela has done all it can. I just scout with a Protect to try to bait out a high chum kick to see if I get lucky. Unsuccessful. I'm in full control of this game. I expect Licky Licky is going to come out. I clicked Destiny Bond because I was okay dying with Gengar if it meant that I could kill Metacham, but unfortunately he flees straight to the Licky Licky. Not a big deal. I don't know how much damage it's going to do. I'm not going to take any chances. I should have gone for a nasty plot here because I was going to survive this, like very reliably survive that knockoff, and I got overly nervous. I missed the focus blast. Really not a big deal because what's going to happen here and what's incredibly easy to do is come in with Florges and click substitute because there's just nothing Licky Licky can do about that. And I can Calm Mind freely here because I know Licky Licky isn't going to break it in one attack, especially at +1. And now I know I can one hit KO this Mega Metacham with the Moonblast, which I'm going to do here. So Mega Metacham is gone. I should know that I can kill Mega Licky, or I should know I can kill Licky Licky with a Moonblast at this point, but I don't want to get frozen by Ice Beam if on the off chance it lives by 1%. I've been burned by Ice Beam in the past, and so I rather would be safe and hide behind a sub, which is what I do there, just so I can be safe and assured nothing wild happens at the end. Although I shouldn't be too nervous, I still do have Megalopony to play with, and this is very clearly a SPDEF heavy Licky Licky. So all in all, I was in a very strong spot to win that no matter what. I just took extra caution so that nothing wild happened. But in the end, Floor just got to show off its offensive prowess. I was able to abuse the very big gap that he had in his speed tiers because I just had zero incentive to invest any speed in my Florges, and I was able to go very bulky and very offensive off the bat and then just annihilate his team. Cinderace doesn't show up, which is very fortunate, so Florges has a much easier time dancing around and just smacking hearts, and Cinderace isn't there to create momentum or U-turn or Pyro Ball or Gunk Shot. It's not there to be a problem. Toxapex doesn't show up. I had an answer for Toxapex. My team hasn't really been one so far that encourages someone to bring something like Haze on Toxapex. I haven't done almost any setting up all season long, with the exception of that failed attempt with Celesteela. So I wasn't really nervous about him trying to haze me just because I had not shown that kind of strategy with this team so far. And so I was really, really satisfied that I was able to come in and bring a new type of Florges set and take advantage of the uh, one-dimensional playstyle I had been using up to that point with my team, which had been very, very defensive with just slowly poking holes until it was weak enough where Megalopony could win the game more reliably. So a big change up in my strategy. It played out well in the end. A couple of small flukes with the Celesteela, but otherwise a very, very strong game from the Flower, who I have finally used to work for me rather than against me. Those that have seen me play in leagues like PDL have seen how poorly my matches tend to go when I am versing a Flower. So to be able to use one very successfully here was a very rewarding little game to have played. So that's all for this one. I will be back as I make my attempt for a positive record in the CFL, as well as some other videos and some other ongoing leagues. So stay tuned.